Alright, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about core sets. So if you haven't heard, core sets might be coming back. Now, nothing's been officially announced, but there have been some not so subtle hints that core sets might be coming out. Wizards of the Coast have been putting these, you know, not very subtle pulls on social media. Things like, you know, we're not technically bringing core sets back, but if we were, what do you think we should name them? Stuff like that. Good job. I totally didn't take from that core sets might be coming back. Yeah, I did know. So, it seems like core sets are going to be coming back, and I want to discuss whether that's a good or bad thing. I want to look at the history of core sets, where they've been, why they stopped being a thing, and whether they'll be a good or bad thing in the future. So, first off, maybe if you're a newer player, just a quick little definition of what a core set is. A core set is a supplementary set to Magic the Gathering that technically counts as standard, but isn't a part of the main, story blocks. Traditionally, or at least originally, they came out every 2 years. They were these very basic, simplistic sets that were kind of intended for new players. They had all basic abilities. They explained in depth on the cards how like flying works and how trample works and stuff like that. And it was supposed to be like an introductory set. But in addition to that, because they were standard legal, Wizards could use core sets to address problems in standard. If artifacts were too powerful, they could print stuff like Shatter. Shatter's not good. It's just 2 mana to destroy an artifact, but it's an answer to a problem in standard if that's an issue. They could print faster creatures if that's needed. They could give more power to a certain color if it's too weak in standard at the moment. Basically, it was just a way for Wizards to address standard. And again, traditionally, they came out every 2 years, and this was when a block in Magic lasted a year. So basically, there was a new core set with each standard environment, and it rotated independently of the blocks. For example, when I started playing, the 2 blocks that made up standard were Odyssey and Onslaught, and 7th edition was the core set. Then 8th edition came out, and that made 7th edition rotate. So it was, blocks rotated independently, and core sets rotated independently. And the problem with core sets is that people just didn't want to buy them after a while. Again, these were really basic cards, not super powerful usually, though there were always some powerful cards. Like Wrath of God would be reprinted in them. Things like Path to Exile and stuff like that would be reprinted through core sets. So there were powerful cards, and they were often enough value that you could open a lot of it and reliably get some money back if you were a store or an investor. But players just weren't buying a lot of it. And a big reason is because a huge portion of the core set was, again, it's always reprints. So you already have a playset of half the core set when it comes out. So you might have playsets of every card in a core set when it comes out, and it's like, well, why do I need to buy or open that? I don't need that. I have everything in it. Wizards would print it to address standard, but then the players would be like, great, I'll just use my playset from 2 core sets ago, and that's fine, and that was perfectly legal. So, Wizards had an issue with just selling the stuff. I mean, it's a great way to get new players in, and it's a great way to address standard. But at the end of the day, Wizards needs to sell the product, and if no one's buying it, then, what good is it really? And Wizards tried to address that when they renamed the core sets, right? They were, 7th, 8th, 9th edition, and so forth, and they changed them to Magic 2010, Magic 2011. They started producing them every single year so they could constantly address standard, within months if something went bad. And I think what was the big issue is that they started to include new cards. Completely new, never before seen cards. And that made core sets have a more laborious development cycle, right? Before it was just reprints. It's, hey, look, this is what standard looks like right now. What do we need to throw into the core set to fix it? And we'll just throw that out, and that'll be good. But once they start creating new cards for core sets, that means they need to be play tested. And that meant that it was just more time consuming to put them out. And they were putting them out every single year. And that still didn't address the issue with the fact that they still contained a lot of basic cards, and they just still weren't selling that well regardless. It was an attempt, but it didn't necessarily succeed in winning over the players and making them want to invest in a lot of core set boosters and booster boxes and whatnot. That went on for a few years up until Magic Origins, where Wizards finally said, you know what, we're not going to do core sets anymore. You know, we've got Masters sets coming out now, and we'll just hopefully deal with that. And they were expecting Standard to rotate faster as well. So they didn't think that they would need core sets, because even if something was broken, new cards were constantly going to be coming into Standard. And, you know, that kind of gave them a way to address it without having this kind of like bogus product that nobody wanted. But then the issue is that, you know, people didn't want the faster Standard rotation. People complained. And, you know, Standard's been kind of a mess ever since. They spent so much time expecting Standard to work a certain way. They built it and designed it to work a certain way. And when they had to change it last minute, you know, things have just been an absolute train wreck, unfortunately. And, you know, that's not their fault necessarily. They built the sets to work a certain way. And then when players complained, they did try to work with them and give them what they wanted. But, you know, the end result has been, well, what Standard has been for the past several months. So now it's looking like core sets might be coming back. And, you know, again, the question is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Now, I'll say this first off. I learned to play Magic with core sets. I learned to play with 7th edition. It was a 7th edition starter kit. And the simplified rules was huge for me. You know, it made the game a little bit less complicated. It gave me time to learn the rules. And it definitely was an integral part of me becoming a Magic the Gathering player. Not only that, but like a year or two later when 8th edition came out, I was still, you know, like in that new player mentality. And I thought that the 8th edition cards were still better than, you know, Onslaught and Mirrodin cards of all things, because, you know, they were simpler. Block cards have a very specific use, and that's hard for a new player who doesn't have a lot of cards, or a new player in a small town like I was that didn't have a local gaming store, who couldn't buy singles. You know, I couldn't build a Mirrodin deck. I just couldn't. I didn't have that many cards. I didn't have enough synergistic cards to actually build a cohesive deck with. So just like a 5-mana, 5/4 worm that's a complete piece of crap seemed better to me than some very specific artifact card from Mirrodin. And obviously for us experienced players, I know I've been playing for 15 years now, you look at core sets and it's like they don't contain a lot of useful cards. It's not something that I would want now. But as a freshman in high school, just learning to play the game, I can't deny that core sets were pretty huge and just getting me introduced into the game. And there really isn't anything like that on the market right now. I mean, we have intro packs. I have a whole nother rant on that. Those are way too expensive. We need something cheap, something affordable that can just get people into the game. You know, like a $10 intro pack, no boosters. Just get them a deck, get a deck in their hands and let them play. That's what we need. That's a whole nother issue I have with Magic the Gathering product right now. But, you know, Magic the Gathering needs a way to introduce new players, and we just don't have that. We do have Duels of the Planeswalkers on PC and Xbox, and some of the older versions are on PlayStation as well. And those are great for getting people into digital Magic, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with digital. I play digital Magic, right? I have no problem with that. But we do need a way to get people to be playing paper Magic. And, you know, there are starter decks that are given out to local gaming stores. But we need a product. We need, you know, intro packs. We need boosters with simplified cards for newer players. And I do think that core sets are important for that reason. And now that's great. But we still have the same old problems. Sure, it's easy to say, hey, we should print core sets so new players can play, right? Like, let's try to get people in with core sets. The problem is, Wizards still needs to sell those cards. I mean, They can't just print tons of core sets and just let the cards languish on the shelves. They still want to sell them. And that brings us back to the whole original problem back with 10th edition and Magic 2010 when they made the transition. How do you make a core set that's, it's profitable, it's appealing to experienced players, but it still offers a good introductory set for new players? And, that's kind of where things get a little bit convoluted. And also keep in mind that these also have to be sent through standard. So it's like, it's easy to say, well, we can just throw in, fetch lands and stuff, and that'll make it appealing for older players. But then that means standard is going to be constantly inundated with overpowered cards. They have to be depowered and not worth a lot so that it doesn't break standard. But then if it's not worth a lot and everything's underpowered, then why would people buy it? So that's the issue we're facing. That's the issue that Wizards of the Coast is facing. And, I'll be frank, I don't know what the solution is. It seems like they're bringing back core sets. I don't know how successful that's going to be. I don't know how much investors are going to want to buy into it. I don't know how many boxes local gaming stores are going to want to buy. I don't know how much money they're going to lose when they don't sell that product. Yet at the same time, if it doesn't exist, how do we get new players in? And it's just a problem. So what's the solution here? And again, I said I don't really have a solution. I'm assuming Wizards of the Coast does. It does seem like they are testing the waters for core sets to come back, or at least they're hinting at it. Like I'm sure they've already planned for it. In my opinion, the only way I could see core sets being successful is if the prices are just lower. I mean, these are basic cards. They're mostly worthless. And even if they contain answers to standard, if they're things like Shatter and Doomblade, like not super powerful cards, if stuff like that gets sent through standard, through core sets, I don't see what the big deal is with just lowering the prices. Like, imagine if core sets didn't contain a ton of value, no super valuable mythics, just answers and a balanced draft setting, right? Like, it drafts nicely, it's fun, and then the booster boxes are like $50 each, and the boosters are a couple dollars, and you're not gonna pull a lot of money out of it, but it's cheap enough to where it'll sell just for being a bargain priced item. It'll let people draft for fun, which is good. You're gonna get people interested in drafting, and it'll probably increase the likelihood that local gaming stores will be able to sell it. So I think that would probably be best. Just a simplified, basic, not super valuable set sold at a lower price to entice new players into the game. I don't see why that's an issue. I know Wizards of the Coast wants to make as much money as possible, and that's perfectly understandable. But if the goal is to address standard regularly, do it with underpowered cards, sell product, and get people interested in Magic, I would think that lowering prices on these sets would be a fantastic way. Like, imagine you're a new player and you see these booster boxes for $80 to $100 each. And then you got these core sets, these very basic core sets where you can buy boosters for a couple bucks. As a young kid, you can buy boosters here and there with your allowance or whatever. It seems like it would be successful to me. And I don't know. I don't know. Look, I don't run a business, but it seems like the most feasible way for core sets to be successful is to just lower the price. But, yeah, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But finally, I'll just say that I am in full support of core sets for new players. We need to get more people playing Magic, and I think core sets is a great way to do it. Whatever the case, I hope that core sets do come back. I hope it is enticing for new players, and I hope that it can fix standard on a regular basis without breaking it. And if Wizard of the Coast can nail all of those, then, consider me excited. No, I can't say as an experienced player that I'm super excited to go open core set boosters. I'm really not. But I do think it's better for Magic when there are core sets. And, I hope it is successful. Anyway, that's all I have to say on the topic. Feel free to tell me I'm an idiot in the comments, that's fine. But you know, by all means, check out the channel, subscribe if you like it, and I'll see you in the next one.